Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. Um, I feel like I say this on almost every episode now. Certainly did not mean to take that long of a break between episodes. I've been dealing with some issues with my back. I had an injury about a year ago that has caught up with me. I've missed a lot of work because of it. Can't keep up with my house because of it. So everything's just kind of fallen to the wayside. And I don't know how great my voice is going to sound on this recording because I feel like I've dropped at least an octave. Um, just as my back was starting to get better, I got sick. And just as I was starting to get over getting sick, um, I was in a wreck. Someone pulled out in front of me, and my car is totaled now. And I feel like I've been run over by a train. No serious injuries, just very sore and bruised all over. And so all of that has kind of kept me from focusing on the podcast or any of my creative endeavors. And when I got in the wreck, I was on my way to see a patient, and this patient had just called me to make sure that I was still on my way. I wasn't running late. And I said, "Yep, I'm almost there. I'll see you in just a few minutes." And then I was in a wreck. And so I had to call her back, say, "Hey, by the way, I will not be there. My car's not drivable and I'm having to deal with all of this." And the patient called to check on me afterwards, because they're very sweet like that, and knew about all the things that had been happening because I'd had to miss several visits of theirs, and said, "I think maybe someone's trying to send you a message that you need to rest." And I haven't been able to stop thinking about that since because pretty sure they're right. But um I am a shark and if I rest I die. So that's a problem. But I have been working on this series that I want to do for the podcast, and I wanted to do a little introduction to it before I get the series started. So that's today's episode. Um things have been very volatile for the past month or so, more than a month. We're halfway through the December now. Um, we'll say 6 weeks. Um, for who knows what reason. Um, but I've seen so much just visceral fear and visceral hate. And I think the series that I'm doing is going to be good for those who care enough to listen to it. Um, but I want to preface it. So, the series, before I get into what the series is, I want to get into the topic of arguing with people or debating people, having discussions with people. First of all, I am autistic, and I really don't understand why so many people say they're not arguing when they're very clearly arguing. Um, there is such a huge weight attached to the word arguing for some reason, and people really don't like it used. We're not arguing. Um, when you're in court and you're going back and forth, that's an argument. Nobody thinks it's bad that the lawyers are doing that then. Um, but for some reason, people hate to be accused of arguing. Um, that it's like you've called them some sort of ugly name. If you say that you're arguing with them or they're arguing with you. Um, and I don't really understand that. And maybe someone who is not autistic like I am can explain it to me. But I see this so often. People are arguing back and forth in a comment section online, and someone says something about argument, and then the counter to that is, "I'm not arguing," when they very clearly are. But whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it arguing or discussion or debate or whatever, um, I would like to invite you to take a moment and think about why you are arguing. Because it's really easy to just get sucked into it. The way that social media is set up, it is very emotionally triggering. And that doesn't mean like necessarily PTSD triggers or anything like that, but it's designed to trigger emotions. It is a dopamine machine. And when you get into those types of chemicals in the brain, you're going to have intense reactions to things that maybe aren't as intense as you are feeling them. So, we might read something that someone commented without their facial expressions or body language or context to go along with it, truly, and suddenly we're having a fight with someone or arguing or whatever you want to call it. There's a back and forth of, no, you're wrong, this is the truth. No, you're wrong, this is the truth. And that often leads to name calling and friendships ruined, etc., etc., etc. And I want you to pause. Just take the next week and pause. And this is a really good week to focus on it coming up because we just got out of Mercury retrograde. Thank God, that was a rough one. I feel like Mercury retrogrades are unnecessarily rough for me because I lean into them. I'm like, yeah, show me all my shadows so I can fix it. And the universe is like, all right, you asked for it. So, it's not that rough for everyone all the time. I just really lean into the energy of it because I like the results that come on the other side of it. I like the healing that comes from it. I like the growth that comes from it. And so every Mercury retrograde that rolls around, I'm just like, okay, time to suffer again. It's kind of like some people go to the gym and hurt themselves so that they can be stronger. I just lean into Mercury retrograde so that I can be a better person. Anyway, we're coming out of Mercury retrograde, so communication is getting clearer. This is a really good time to focus on this. Ask yourself why you need to respond. When you see someone comment something that is triggering you, that makes you want to respond to them, ask yourself why. And this is really important because there's a huge difference between I see this person as a person, I see this person as a soul, I see this person as part of source, I see this person as connected to me, as we are all connected, whatever, however you view it, whatever your philosophical religious beliefs are, viewing them as the same as you, as part of the one whole. And I want them to understand that the words that they're saying is causing a rift, is causing pain. And I want us to come to an understanding and an agreement so they know that their words are causing pain and we can maintain a relationship. There's that. And then there's, I want this person to know they're wrong. And that's the end of the sentence. Because no one takes it further than that sentence. Because the underlying thing beneath that sentence is ugly as hell. The underlying thing under I want them to know they're wrong because they're wrong is I'm right and I want them to know that I'm right and I am superior. It is fully drenched in ego. There is no love in that statement. You can put all the flowers of justification around it that you want to. Oh, well, what they're saying is hurting other people and I'm standing up for other people. Are you doing it in a way that they'll hear you, though? Because this is the thing. This is the thing to keep in mind when you are arguing with people or whatever word you like to use. What is the purpose? What is your intention behind it? Are you trying to help the person who you're arguing with? Or are you viewing them as the enemy? And that's really important to be very conscious of that distinction. Because if you are viewing them as the enemy, then you are not coming from a place of love. However much you may think that you are. Beatrix. Sorry, oh, my cat. She's going crazy behind me. Anyway, I have no idea if the audio picked that up, but she's making some very weird meows. Where was I? Oh, intention and purpose. So if you are trying to prove that they are wrong without any thought to how they receive it or what their actions are going to be on the other side of it, you do not care about that person. It doesn't matter how much you say that you do or what arguments that you put to the contrary. If you are dead set on just proving this person wrong without any thought to winning them over, helping them to see their negativity, whatever, then your purpose is not focused on reconciliation. It is not focused on community. It is not focused on love. And you do with that whatever you want to do with that. But you do need to acknowledge it. That you do not care about that person. Because I see way too many people, especially on the left, talk about inclusivity and that every person matters and you should be able to exist however you want to, in whatever state you want to, and people should accept you where you are and help you grow and blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to some far right winger who has never had any experience outside of Podunk, Alabama, or wherever, never experienced any life outside of that, never been exposed to any thought outside of their very, very narrow reality, there is not love for them. There is not compassion for them. There is not understanding for them. There is no desire to help them grow, to help them be better people, to help them be more loving, to help them understand perspectives outside of their own. All anybody wants to do is insult them, talk down to them, and scream back and forth with them. And I want you to think about what that means for you. If you are engaging in a dialogue with someone for the sole purpose of telling them they're an idiot or a bigot or whatever, and not in a way that they receive it, like, hey, you might want to think about this information that you may not previously have been exposed to. Or, hey, I know this is your experience, but maybe you should think about the experience of other people. Because I don't think that you're looking at this from a broader perspective. Then you're not really helping the cause. You're feeding your ego so you can feel superior to people. And maybe you should just take some time and journal and work on your ego instead of arguing with people online. Because the other thing that you need to think about is if you are representing a certain group, whether you are officially representing a group like a nonprofit organization or whatever, or you're just a member of a certain demographic, and you're being open about that while you're arguing with someone, you are representative of that group or demographic. You are presenting to the public, to others who may not think like you, who may not be a part of that demographic, what you're like, what that group is like. You're representative of that group. So if your response to seeing in an argument, seeing that someone voted for our new incumbent president is to call them a MAGA cuck boy, what does that say about the people who are on the left? What does that say about the people who are pro-choice? What does that say about the people who are in the LGBTQIA plus community? What does that say about whoever? Pick a label. It says that we're bitter, egotistical, mean people, just like those on the opposite side who we see in the media all the time screaming their hatred and bigotry. Is that really how you want to be perceived? As someone who can't engage in dialogue without going to the basest, lowest, most unintellectual argument, in quotation marks, that you could go to, which is to just attack a person, to attack their character. If you're engaging in debate and you start making character attacks, just stop. You've lost the argument already. That's Logic 101. Literally, I took Logic 101. It was in there. If you're making character attacks, you don't have an argument. And that's not to say there's not an argument to be made. You're not the one to be making it. Because you can't articulate your point without getting your ego and emotions involved. Emotions have a certain place in arguments, but not like that. If all you can do is call names and diminish someone's worth, you don't need to be arguing with people. You need to be working on yourself and your ego because you're hurting the cause. So, I said, think about why you're arguing. What's your purpose? Think about the intention behind the argument. Think about how you're representing whatever group it is. You also need to keep in mind what are the other person's intentions or purpose. And they may not state them specifically. Sometimes you can figure it out. Sometimes you can just ask them and they'll tell you. Maybe they started the debate, not you. What is it that they're wanting to do? Are they wanting to prove you wrong? Are they wanting to come to an agreement, to an understanding? Finding out what their purpose is should also lead how you discuss with them. Because if someone just wants to prove you wrong, you're wasting your time. Especially in cases like this, when we're talking about really deep political and philosophical issues. If they just want to prove you wrong, neither one of you is going to get anywhere. You're both wasting your time. Only one of you can make that decision for you, and that's you. Walk away. Walk away from the I'm right, you're wrong arguments. They don't do any good. The other thing that you really need to keep in mind is who do you want to be? And you should keep this in mind with everything that you do. Every way that you show up in the world, every argument, every interaction, every time you step out of your bed and step out of your home, every time you pick up your phone, every time you speak to another human being, in whatever medium you speak to them, you need to think about who you want to be. Am I going to be someone who is loving? Am I going to be someone who's emotionally regulated? Am I going to be someone who speaks the truth? Am I going to be someone who has integrity and honesty? Am I going to be somebody who just kowtows to whatever people say just to get along? Am I going to lie down and let people run over me? Am I going to be a bully who makes sure everyone knows that I'm stronger than they are and they're not going to beat me either physically or verbally because I'm going to beat them first? Who do you want to be? That should be at the forefront of your mind when you're interacting with others. Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up here? What am I bringing into the world? What am I bringing into this interaction? And is this in alignment with my core beliefs and who I want to be? I sincerely hope that my listeners do not want to be bullies who just insult people because they ran out of words to articulate their point. The last point I want to make in the things to keep in mind is respect and personhood. The right loves to talk about personhood in the context of abortion, and that's it. It's literally the only time you will ever hear them talk about personhood. It's when they're talking about abortion. That baby that is unborn, that's in the womb, it is a person, it has personhood, it has the rights as a person, and that is the only time you will ever hear them talk about it. Not about women who are dying of ectopic pregnancies, not about immigrants, not about the LGBTQIA plus community, not even about Democrats. They like to view everyone who is other as not really people. Let us not fall into that same trap when arguing with them, because I've heard way too many people on the left do that, and it's disgusting. Dehumanizing someone is disgusting. I don't care what your reasons are. I don't care what they did. Dehumanizing a person is disgusting. Period. Full stop. You are dehumanizing them because you cannot accept your own badness, your own ugliness, your own shadow. You have awful things inside of you. We all do. That is human nature. We all have horrible impulses. We all have very dark things, things we may have done, things we may have thought about doing, things that bubble up inside us when we're in our darkest moments. We all have a darkness inside of us. Carl Jung called it our shadow self. That's why I do so much shadow work. That's why I use Mercury retrograde to do so much shadow work. It's the perfect time to do that. To accept the parts of you that you have not yet accepted, that you think are unacceptable, that maybe society has told you are unacceptable, or your family has told you are unacceptable, or maybe you just told yourself it was unacceptable. But there is a part of you that connects to the thing that you're trying to dehumanize. And that's why you're trying to dehumanize it. Because you say, I'm not like them. I can't stand that. That's not me. They're not even people. Because if you admitted that they are also people, that they have personhood, that they deserve respect and love, just like everyone else does, then you would have to face that part of you that is like them. And you're probably saying, oh no, I have nothing like them. I'm not like that. Yes, you are. We're all connected. And it's really easy for me to say that as someone who went through a transformation from hardcore right wing, literally working on campaigns of the most extreme right wing candidates in the state, to now being on the opposite of the side of the aisle. I know why I hated the opposite side of the aisle, because it was within me. I was like that. I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't stand to see people coming out because I was bisexual and couldn't admit it. I couldn't stand to see these workers' rights groups and unions and things like that They were just bullies and awful because I couldn't accept that I was accepting less than I deserved in every single part of my life, from my personal relationships to my family to my career to everything, and seeing other people get what I wasn't getting because they were doing what I wasn't willing to do hurt me. They didn't hurt me, I hurt myself. And so I had to distance myself from that and villainize them because I wasn't getting what I wanted because I was too scared to do what they did. There's an opposite of that that is true. And that's why I'm doing the series that I'm doing. My upcoming series is going to be on what evangelicals believe based on my upbringing. And as much as I am able to, I'm going to bring into it the beliefs of the different denominations that I was raised in because I am familiar with some of them based on friendships that I've had and things like that. Um, but it's mostly going to be the beliefs of how I was raised, and a lot of them are kind of universal throughout the evangelical church. Now, why am I doing this? Because whether you need to know your enemy or whether you need to understand how to connect with people who are very different from you, you need to understand this because this is what I see so much in the right versus left battle is that the right views the left as these just hedonistic, godless, morally bankrupt, irresponsible, lazy people who just want everyone to hand everything to them and not take any accountability for their actions or any responsibility for their own lives. And going from right to left and realizing that that was not true, and then seeing intimately on the left looking at the right as these people who just want to control everyone no matter what, and they don't care about anything, and they're just using their religion as a justification to control people. That's not entirely true either. I'm going to say there aren't people who are like that within that movement, but they're mostly the people in power. And I keep seeing all this stuff on social media, and it really warms my heart to get away from the culture warfare because it's a class warfare, and that is the whole point. Y'all are being blinded by rhetoric from the media on both sides to hate your neighbors because if you're fighting your neighbors, you will not look up at the fucking ivory towers on the hill that are the whole reason for your problems. Your neighbors aren't your problems. It's the fucking people in the White House or wherever. It's not a culture warfare, it's class warfare. And y'all are way too distracted. So I'm going to introduce you to the evangelicals and what they believe. Not in a way to tear apart what they believe, but so that you can understand. And I feel like I'm prepping sermons while I'm doing this, which is really weird for me. I used to teach Sunday school at church, and I had co-teachers because insurance things. Because did you know this? That churches have to carry insurance, and part of their insurance, because of kids in classes and stuff, dictates that an adult can't be alone with a group of children in a room. They have to have another adult there, and I can't imagine why any insurance would imagine that they needed to do that for safety reasons or whatever. but it's a thing. And I had so many of the women who sat in classes with me, and it was all women because it's sinful for a woman to teach in front of a man and usurp authority over a man, so it had to be a woman in there with me. We'll get into that in one of the episodes. They told me, wow, you do such a great job teaching. I feel like if you had been born a man, you would make such a great preacher. It's kind of a shame that you're a woman because I think you would do great at preaching sermons and you would make a great preacher. So now that I have taken off the burden of evangelical Christianity, particularly the Church of Christ version of it, I guess I'm going to give y'all some sermons. And we're going to start with the Bible. That's going to be my first episode. We're going to talk about the Bible. Yes, in general, not the whole thing. I'm going to talk to you about why they think the Bible is the infallible, inspired Word of God. Because you really have to start there. That's the base. You have to start with that because nothing else really falls into it if you don't start with that. It doesn't matter what the Bible says if you don't understand the basis of believing that the Bible is the infallible, inspired Word of God. And so that's going to be the next episode. And I hope you will join me for it. And in the meantime, think about why you're arguing with people. Think about why you're engaging in conversation with them. People are people. Just because you can't see their faces, all you see is their profiles on social media does not make them any less of a person. And y'all are disappointing. I've been so disappointed. And truly, watching my friends just be absolutely vile, spewing all kinds of vitriol and bullying people. You can't even make an argument. You just have to go into calling people names and dismissing them. And it's really disheartening, and it makes me realize why Donald Trump won. Because Donald Trump is the ultimate bully. He bullied his way into the White House the first time. He bullied his way through 4 years of trial and not being in the White House, and he bullied his way right back in. And watching so many on the left be nothing but bullies. Yeah, you can say he's not your president, but he is. You're acting just like him, just to different people. If you can't be better than the person who you say you don't want in power, then maybe you should just be quiet. Maybe you should take some time and work on yourself instead of acting like you can make a difference by bullying people who think differently than you. And I am not comparing racism and homophobia to opinions when I say that. I am saying that what you're doing is ineffective and you are too scared and ego driven to make a difference with what you're doing. I invite all of you to lead with love because that's the only way to change things. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. said. You can say all that you want about who he was as a person versus what he preached. But what he preached was beautiful. He was an oppressed minority, and a minority that is still oppressed to this day. And in places where he couldn't even go and get a fucking cup of water, he said hate doesn't drive out hate. Only love can do that. Darkness doesn't drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So if you are acting in the same way as the people who you are saying don't need to be in power, you're not helping. So take some time and work on yourself so you can be helpful, so the world can lead with love. I love you all right where you're at. And I hope you will join me next time on the podcast as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress.